In my work doing conflict transformation, I've discovered 3 rules of conflict. The first is that it's not about what it's about. Second is that whoever's involved in the problem is going to have to be involved in the solution. And the third, which I'm going to talk about today, is that the process for transforming the conflict is the same as the outcome. So what do I mean by that? It means that the process for transforming a conflict, the very choice to engage in the process of making a change, is the beginning of a new way of being in a relationship. Another way to think about that is the qualities that and the intentions that we use in the process are going to be the things that are infused into the outcome that we're going to arrive at. This comes back to the quote where we started with about belief creating destiny. The ways that we act with each other is going to inspire the ways that we continue to act with each other. So this is particularly relevant to nonviolence, and it's a theme that I've been at for the last couple of videos in case you haven't seen them. So I'm going to start us off with a little quotation here from Thomas Merton, who wrote the introduction to Gandhi on nonviolence. Peace cannot be built on exclusivism, absolutism, and intolerance. But neither can it be built on vague liberal slogans or pious programs that are gestated in the smoke of deception. Okay, the original quote says conflagration, but I had to look that up, so deception, people who are intending to deceive you. He goes on to say that there can be no peace on earth without the kind of interchange that brings man back into his right mind. What we're seeing here is, okay, we know that we can't build the future that we want or the peace of the future if we're trying to be exclusive, if we're trying to be absolutist, if we're being intolerant. Just fluffy sound bites isn't going to get us there, and nor is lies or deception or trying to trick people. So how do we do it? We have to do it ourselves. Now, this is a big thing to think about, but it really is about me and you and us. We're the ones that right now are building the future that we want to live in. That's a big one. So how do we do that? What would it look like for us to start building the future that we all want to live in right now? So I'm going to share a bunch of ideas that I'd collected. I'm sure there are more. In fact, if you have other ideas about what you can do right now to make change, to start building the world you want to live in, share it. I would love to hear about that. So here's a couple of them. One, a theme that came up a couple weeks ago, self-reflection and self-forgiveness. It's actually a lot easier and way more efficient to shift from trying to figure out how to fix all those people out there. Surely they need fixing, but to first start with figuring out how to fix ourselves. And this means owning our own contribution to whatever harm is happening or whatever it is we don't like, and also paying attention to our own contribution to the healing that is possible. Another quote here, if you aren't part of the problem, you can't be part of the solution. And so recognizing the way that you're part of the problem too and finding your forgiveness for that is the wonderful foundation for starting to build the world you want to live in. A way to actively do this is to use I statements. I statements tell better stories. They're much more engaging. If I say, I did this, this is what happened to me, as opposed to, you know what happens to people in these situations, it's not as good. But they're really important because you're owning your own story. Your feelings, my experiences, my requests, my desires. By owning that, I am taking responsibility for the world that I want to live in. So what do I do with these other folks? Deep listening, that's the second one. We need just practice listening. And I'll just go quickly through how this works. First of all, empathize with the other person. Show that you're curious by asking them questions, and use reflective listening. It's a really great skill because you really want that other person to feel heard, because you like feeling heard, other people like feeling heard. Next thing is insist on inclusion. If you're being part of something that's trying to make change, who's missing? Why are they missing? Figure out how to remedy whoever it is that you're deciding to exclude from your change vision, because their perspective is going to be important too. One trick on how to do this is to try to figure out what the underlying question is that everyone who's involved can agree with. So instead of trying to say, like, how do we change this, or how do we create this set of rules or this new thing, instead try to figure out what is actually trying to be addressed here and look for the question that everyone wants to answer. So instead of trying to figure out like any specific legislative agenda that you might have up your sleeve, a question that everyone might be interested in is like, what will it take to create a sustainable future for our country and the world such that our grandchildren will be living great lives? You know, that might be something that people can get behind. Another set of advice that I heard in the movie that I watched, and I'll give you a link for that around here, the film is called Third Harmony. But the three harmonies are harmony with Earth and our environment, harmony with other people, and harmony with ourselves. And they have 5 elements that they suggest. So first of all, avoid or be very cautious about your consumption of violent media. Where is your information source? What are they normalizing? Paying attention to that, that's a good one. Also, go learn your skills. Learn nonviolence. There's wonderful, great schools that teach this. I would recommend the Meta Center or East Point Peace Academy. And I'm sure there's all sorts of places that can give you wonderful nonviolence training, because it does require some discipline. But also, learn nonviolent communication. Go take a class on mediation or learn about restorative justice. It's a real up-and-comer and really important thing. Restorative justice basically asks, how can we restore our community back to the best situation that we want? It seems like a really important question for us. Another piece of advice is take up a spiritual practice. That can mean whatever it wants to you, but it's helpful to have some sort of capacity for mindfulness and a meditative state, to find equanimity in the face of challenging situations. And also it's really nice to have a sense of not really being in this alone. So pick up a spiritual practice. Also, try to relate personally whenever you can. If you're feeling divided or you don't like someone, figure out how you can relate to them in a more personal level. Break bread. That's a good way to think about it. Go on a walk. Talk about a common interest. And the next one is figure out something that's aligned with your values. Start a project. Dedicate yourself. Figure out something that is aligned with life and whatever it is that you want to pursue in this world, and go do something about it. Another piece that's interesting, and this comes from a woman named Barbara Deming, and she calls it the 2 hands of nonviolence. And basically, the first hand is stop. Is basically saying, I'm not going to cooperate with situations and systems that are not just, that are not okay, that I don't believe in. Develop your capacity for not tolerating crappy situations. And the other hand is the open hand. And it says, I'm open to you as a human being. I love you no matter what. So, in summary, this 2 hands nonviolence is stop tolerating unjust and ineffective systems, and be open to the inherent human goodness that's inside of everyone. Last thing I'll just add here, because this is a quote that came up in my little quote of the day calendar that I thought was really great. This is from Aldous Huxley. It's a bit embarrassing to have been concerned with the human problem all of one's life, and to find that at the end that one has no more to offer by way of advice than try to be a little kinder. So if nothing else, just ask, is what I'm saying kind? Am I acting with kindness? If you want a world that's kind in the future, go ahead and start practicing that right now. So I'm asking this of you. I am sharing this with you because I think that we all need to be participating in the creation of the world that we want to live in. And in my conflict transformation work, people often ask me, do you believe that peace is possible? Do you think there's going to be an end to conflict? And kind of depends on how you think about it. 2 parts to this. First of all, we're not going to get to the end of conflict. Conflict is an ongoing thing. As long as we have diversity, we're going to have conflict. Disagreement is a normal thing. But conflict does not have to be a painful experience. There's an active choice that we get to make. Do we want this experience of being indifferent to be painful and cause harm and destruction? Or do we want this to be an opportunity for healing and learning and generative co-creation? Another reason why I'm not really sure if we're going to get to the end of conflict is because there might not actually be an end. And this comes to the other part of the third rule of conflict, and why I say the process and the outcome are the same is because the end of the process isn't a fixed state. It is going to be another process. We're just going to, this process isn't adequate. We're going into a new process, and hopefully it's more adequate, but that process is going to keep on continuing. And that leads us to what I call the fourth of the three rules of conflict, which is there's not going to be a final outcome. If you want to hear more about that, check out the video next week, subscribe, sign up, however you want to get a hold of this, and check out my Substack at omniwin.substack.com to get kind of synthesis essays about this and access to all the videos in one place. I'm going to come back to this point here and leave you with a little question. So again, we are the ones who are responsible for building the future we want to live in. You are responsible for building the future that you want to live in. So I ask, what are the qualities and the values that you want to see in this future? And then how can you infuse your actions right now, today, with those values and beliefs and qualities? This, I'm not a hypothetical question in this case. I would love to hear your answers to this. What is something that you can do right now that's going to help you create the future that you want to live in? Leave your comments here. Thank you for watching. And next week I'll be back with the fourth rule of conflict. Have a good one.